Hi, Jen.
Hi, I'm back.
I see. I am too. So, what's it like working at the LA Times?
Oh, it's a ball. It's been a little tumultuous the last year and a half, but I'm still happy to have a job I love, and it's overall it's good. Overall, it's a
Yeah.
good thing.
I mean, you're in LA at a major newspaper. It's pretty amazing.
Yes,
But
yes, it is. It is. It's a lot of fun. I still pinch myself that this is my job, so I hope to never. I hope to never lose that feeling. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Right.
And how are things with you?
Good. We've been doing a lot of programming online and basically very successfully. Um, there's, obviously a lot that I miss about face-to-face programming, but it's really cool, that we can be in the kitchen, but you're up in LA and we can have people coming from different locations and they're not having to deal with the parking and finding the kitchen. It's like,
Yeah, I do hope to see it one day.
yeah,
But
it's a nice space and Jess does
yeah,
an amazing job. She has all sorts of really interesting culinary medicine and we do cultural programming and she teaches students how to cook and eat healthily and it's really quite amazing all the stuff that Jess does. And then we get to collaborate on some of the projects. So it's good.
nice.
And yeah, so we're
We'd
doing
love to have you come back, Jen, and show us how to make everything or something else.
Oh no, I will be watching you make things, but thank you.
No,
But I would love to come though for sure. Yeah.
the beauty of you doing it though is that you would do it in your way. So you can choose whatever you want to make, but I think people like watching other people cook too. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
You mean in my very precise kind of throw it together way? Yes, I'd be happy to share that with you guys for sure. Yeah.
We'll clean up after you. We'll give you
Oh
all the
no,
assistance you want.
I clean up after myself. I like to have a nice clean kitchen, and I'm one of those cooks who cleans while she cooks. So I won't make a mess in your kitchen, I promise.
My husband would love you. He hates me.
Uh,
okay, it's just
yeah.
a little bit before 5, so I'm going to turn off my camera now and my mic, and then we'll turn it on again once we open the program. So I'll see you soon.
Okay.
What is that? Is somebody playing Mortal Kombat?
Oh, the speed test. There's nothing wrong with that one, I think. Mine keeps saying it's unstable. This. That's what I thought. Okay. It's connected to my phone next, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it helps. Oh, spot it.
Yeah, I had to do that too, actually.
Yeah, I see the lagginess. It's just a computer. I know. It's called the internet. It doesn't always want to work the way we want it to.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar.
Good.
Hey, Jen, which can you stop your camera for a second?
Hey, Jen, can you stop your
Yeah.
camera for 1 sec
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Where am I?
and mute?
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Illuminations, one of our Conversation Kitchen events. I'm so excited to have all of you here and to be welcoming Jenn Harris, one of our wonderful alums, back to UCI to talk about journalism, food writing, the state of kitchens and comfort food in LA, and more. So Jenn Harris is a columnist for the food section of the LA Times, and she's host of the Bucket List Fried Chicken Show. She has a BA in literary journalism from UCI, and she got her MA in journalism from USC. Her articles for the LA Times do a bunch of different things. Sometimes she's testing and ranking foods such as chili sauces, chicken wings, and very yummy fish sandwiches. Sometimes she's tracking down intriguing dishes, such as cauliflower shawarma and creme brulee cookies. She writes profiles on LA restaurants and the people behind them. And her work can also be more political. She has covered anti-Asian comments on Yelp, and she's written about how food service workers have survived during the pandemic. And she has some quirky pieces too, such as The Girl with the Food Tattoos. We're also going to be hearing tonight from Chef Jessica VanRoo. Many of you already know her. She's the Director of Culinary Education at UCI, where she teaches culinary classes to students, staff, and other clients. She's currently developing advanced culinary courses for young learners and the public. She's got great programs at the School of Medicine as well as with the main campus. So today we're going to talk to Jenn about her journey as a food writer. We will also be exploring some comfort foods and talk about cooking today in the age of COVID at home and in restaurants. So Jenn, welcome back to UCI. Can you tell us a little bit about your time here in the literary journalism program and your development as a food writer?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me, Julia. So I went to UC Irvine specifically for the literary journalism program that you guys have there. It was so fantastic. It's the type of writing that I liked to read. And I loved that it was a program that focused specifically on that and different ways of storytelling. And I got to study authors that I had admired for a long time, like Joan Didion and Norman Mailer. And I remember actually my personal essay class with Amy Willentz, which was my favorite class. She's amazing. And I just feel like I really was able to find and develop my voice in that class and just become a better writer. So yeah, my time at UC Irvine was great. I actually wrote for the university newspaper as well. I think my first story was on the pilot episode of 30 Rock, which was a long time ago. But I ended up writing pieces on restaurants, and I think I covered like a electronic music show one time. But I loved my time there, and there was a plethora of resources for me to help develop my voice there. UC Irvine was great.
How did you get into food writing in particular? That's such a specialized area. What drew you to that in your background, in your travels, in your imagination? What is it about food and writing that stick for you?
I think because I'm human, I like to eat. I think most people like to eat. But I come from a family that has always prioritized food. So my mother is Chinese American. Her mother, my grandmother, was born in Canton, and she lives in Monterey Park. And she really raised my sister and I when we were little. We were always at her house. She was always watching us, and she was always cooking, and she was always cooking Chinese food. I don't think I ever saw her cook any. I was trying to think today if I had seen her cook anything but Chinese food, and I don't think she ever did. It was a lot of fried rice and char siu and Hainan chicken and noodles and soup. And if she wasn't cooking, she was taking us out to Chinese restaurants in the San Gabriel Valley for dumplings and congee and dim sum. I grew up in this environment where I was surrounded by all this really amazing food from different regions of China and Taiwan and Hong Kong. And I think because of that, I was always interested in Chinese food in particular, but also just food and where it comes from and who's making it. My parents as well on the weekend, we spent our weekends like driving to different parts of Los Angeles to try different restaurants. Like that is what we did on the weekends. So food to me is something very nostalgic. It's important to my family, and it's how we kind of spent time together as a family. And that's just what we did. So it turned out, so now we like to go try, go to different restaurants around Alhambra to see how the like scallion pancakes are different from each other, or how one Shenzhen bao is different from another. And we're very nerdy about it. And that's just really how we like to spend our time. And I've always loved writing, and I thought, wouldn't that be great if I could actually write about food? And I had a weird path to it. But I actually started at the Times after grad school. I started at the Times in the fashion and book review departments. And I ended up writing a weekly Sunday column for the image section on celebrity fashion, which I like fashion too, but that was definitely not kind of what I wanted to do. But I was an avid reader of the food section. I sat very close to them. I was always kind of like creeping on them, and just because that's really what I wanted to do. And so I one day I just asked the food editor at the time, Russ Parsons, if I could take him to lunch, and he didn't have a lot of time. So he let, I said, I sit over there. I work in a different section. I'm a big fan. I'm very familiar with all, every food section you've put out. And can I take you to lunch? And he let me buy him a turkey sandwich downstairs at our cafeteria. Anyway, so over the sandwich, I basically told him I wanted to write for the food section. I said, if there are any stories that you've been wanting someone to cover that you don't have the staff for, I will do it. I'll do it on my own time. Just give it to me. And he sent me to the Orange County Fair to write about deep fried food. And I went, I tasted the fried butter. I ate all the fried things. I wrote something fun for him, and he liked it. So when a full-time position in food came up a little while later, I got it. And then I've been in the food section ever since.
Oh, that's such a great story. And had you been like writing about food as a child? Did you write about food creatively? I mean, what preceded that eventful turkey sandwich?
That eventful turkey sandwich. Well, I think when I was 5, my mom said I like made a magazine. She said I was cutting out things from other magazines and turning it into something I called Jenn's Mag, which is also very nerdy. But there was a lot of food in there. I just really always loved food. And in high school, I just started kind of writing like my own little food blog, like cooking blog. And then when I was at UC Irvine, I wrote a couple restaurant pieces. But really, when I was in grad school at USC, I helped start Neon Tommy, which was a digital news site that we had there for a while. And I started doing a weekly cooking and food column for that. And I would write about different recipes. And I also had a dating column, which is really embarrassing and no one should look up. But the food stuff was fun. And I just kind of started doing it more and more. And then that's just how I got into it.
Well, that's great. And I know we have some students in the audience, some of whom are probably in the literary journalism program now. Do you have advice for them?
Oh, yes.
What might that be?
Particular advice? Take Amy's class. No, other than that, I think for some, I mean, especially if you're just kind of entering the workforce, I would say be open to all opportunities, even if it seems like something you don't particularly want to cover. Like when I was at UC Irvine, I got an internship at at a publishing company called Duncan McIntosh Publishing Company in Orange County. And they had a yacht magazine, a maritime newspaper, and a fishing publication. These are not things I was interested in the slightest, but I interned there for I think 4 or 5 months, and because it was a small operation, they put me in charge of many things that I probably should not have been in charge of, but I got great experience, and it looked really great on my resume. It actually helped me get some other jobs. And writing and reporting is writing and reporting, regardless of what you're covering. You still need to do the research. You need to get your facts straight. The base for all of that is the same. So I would say that even if, and again, like with my job at the LA Times, starting in 2 sections I didn't necessarily want to be a part of, I kind of just made opportunities for myself and made the most of it, and kind of geared it to what I wanted to do. So I would just say that even if something doesn't seem exactly like what you think you want to do, try it anyway. It's going to be a good experience.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Jess, I think you have a dish to demonstrate for us. Should we?
I am, and this is actually Jenn's dish. And so Jenn, do you want to talk a little bit about this dish?
Sure. I think you're going to make my grandma's fried rice, right?
The sweet rice. Yep.
Yes. Okay. So this is something I have grown up eating. I mean, my grandma makes this for every occasion. I've probably eaten it and made it a million times, but something to get the recipe from her, because she doesn't do recipes. When I asked her for the recipe, she just said, you just put a little of this. So I had to go to her house and kind of like grab her hand when she was like measuring something, and then put it in a measuring cup or a spoon to see what the actual quantity was. So I'm very happy that we now actually have a recipe that works, and I'm so excited that you're going to make it.
So everyone will get a copy of the recipe at the end. I'll post them up or I'll email them to you. Sweet rice is really interesting. And so I grew up eating this too. I tested this recipe out, and my husband and I shouldn't have eaten all of it, but we ate all of it. So it's a really good recipe. And it's made in a really interesting way that you usually don't see nowadays, people teaching it this way. So the main thing is that we're going to be using a rice called glutinous rice. And you might see it listed as sticky rice. If you're in the store, you need to make sure that it says sweet rice or glutinous rice, okay? It's different than regular rice. Regular rice has 2 starch components in it, and it holds its shape then. Sweet rice has only one of the starches. It has traces of the other one, but what ends up happening is that as soon as hot water touches it, it starts to kind of degrade that grain and cook it. So the first step of making any kind of sweet rice is you're going to soak it in cold water. So I usually, like if you're doing mango and sticky rice, we always say overnight. If you have an Instant Pot, you don't need to wait. There's great Instant Pot recipes. And you just wash this until it's clear. Now, that's probably the hardest part of this recipe, because washing glutinous rice till it's clear is hard, because if you think about it, that glutinous rice has that white powdery substance on the outside. Glutinous rice is just like regular rice. It had a bran on the outside and it was just removed. It's just a different grain. It's not rice that's been cooked or treated or anything. It's just a different grain. So we let it soak for 2 hours, and then I drained it. And then after you drain it, you take hot boiling water and you pour it on top of it and let it sit for 15 minutes. And you're left with all kind of cooked rice, but not really cooked rice. And now comes the fun part, because we're going to start making the stir-fried part of it. So what I'm going to say now is, when I make this, or the other way of making this, is you cook the rice completely and then you stir fry everything and you mix it all up like you do normal fried rice. This is different in the sense that we're going to slowly add the liquid into the dish, and it's going to be chicken stock. And I just use canned chicken stock, so you can use what you want. But the ingredients that are going to go in are garlic cloves, dried shiitake mushrooms. And so these are dried shiitake mushrooms. If you've never bought them before, this is one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. Shiitake mushrooms are incredibly dirty. They have not been washed before they've been dried. So you really, really need to wash them and even take off the stems before you use them, because all of that dirt just goes into your food. Some people like saving that broth or that stuff that it's soaked in. You can use it, it's fine. But just make sure that you've taken all the debris off of the mushroom before you soak it. So I'm just gonna take off the stem. I'm not gonna use it. If you want, you can save it and make like a broth out of it. It's got great umami flavor. And so if you're a vegetarian or just looking for some other form of flavor, the shiitake stem is great. So I've got those guys. And then I've got dried shrimp. And dried shrimp is your cat's favorite thing. So keep it away from them. Yeah. Do you have a cat, Jen?
I do not, and I did not know that. So, but now I know.
So cats love this stuff. But I soaked it, and then they come in different sizes. If you go into a Vietnamese supermarket, like in Westminster or Garden Grove, they will tell you that the large ones have the most flavor. It's debatable because it depends on what you're using them for. When they're large like this, they kind of get in the way. But there are a lot of people who don't like the taste of these shrimp. And so if you keep them large, you can pick them out too. So it's really up to you. But they have a lot of flavor and they're salty. So you need to wash them, then soak them, and then you can use them. So I'm going to give them a rough chop. And so I'm just going in and just roughly chopping it. And you got to be careful because some of them can still be a little bit hard. And then the last ingredient that's going to go in there is the la tang, or I wish I could say it in Cantonese. How do you say it in Cantonese, Jen? Do you know?
Just call it lap chang.
Lap chang.
The
we call it
sausage, which is amazing. The Chinese sausage.
And it's right here. And it's usually a 2-to-1 meat to fat ratio. So when you cut it open, you'll notice a lot of these little chunks of fat. That's all flavor. It is not cooked. So you can't just go in and try this. I like using this as my fat. So there's a lot of fat in here. So you can render it out and then cook your rice in it. So I'm just going to cut it in half and then quarter it. So flip it around again and then cut it and then dice it.
Do you ever fry it up? Like I tend to fry pieces of lapjang, like small pieces, and use them in place of bacon bits because they're so delicious.
They are. And they have, so the ingredients that really make it special are like the Shaoxing wine and the, I think there's one other thing. I think I've seen recipes that even have liver in it that make it taste better.
It's magic sausage.
Yes, exactly. That is. I've seen it called magic sausage. So then we're gonna do some garlic. You can slice it, dice it, really up to you, but the garlic's really gonna give it the flavor.
And Jess, you also have an Asian background. Do you want to share that?
I do. So I grew up in Taiwan. So I moved here when I was 19. And so it's interesting, a lot of the things that Jen was saying, because I actually experienced exactly what she went through. Only I have, my dad is Caucasian, grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and my mom is from Taiwan. He has officially lived in Taiwan for over 30 years now. And he's never wanted to move back. He loves it there. But I used to go back every year, but food really is an essential part of my family too. I feel like it's a lot of Chinese families use food to bring people together. It doesn't matter if you don't have any money. The one thing that you always have money for is food, is what I grew up with. And so my mom, though, living in Taiwan, had a hard time coming up with Caucasian dishes for my dad. So we ate a lot of tuna casserole. I grew up thinking tacos were refried beans with cheese in a hard shell. I had no idea there was meat inside of them. And so I ate a lot of food that my dad liked growing up.
Jen, have you traveled in Asia?
No, I've only been to Japan. I was supposed to go to Hong Kong last year, but then the pandemic happened. I haven't traveled a lot in Asia, but I would definitely like to.
Exciting.
All
Okay,
right,
take us back to your dish. I'm sorry, Jess.
No, keep asking questions. We're gonna start cooking now though. So we're gonna grab a pan or a wok, whichever one you want to use. Non-stick preferably, because we are going to put rice in there. If you have a well-seasoned wok though, you're perfectly okay. So I'm going to heat my pan up. And I'm going to, we're going to switch on over, and I'm going to add, like I said, I'm just adding a little bit of oil. You don't even really need to, but I'm going to add the sausage in first to get it really crispy, like Jen was saying, almost like little bacon bits.
Mhm.
And it
you
does have
use
MSG.
fresh shiitakes for that, or would you only ever use the dried mushrooms?
You can use the fresh. The problem is that with the fresh mushrooms, they have liquid in them. The dried mushrooms, you've dried them and then you reconstitute them, but then you squeeze out all that extra water. So it's not going to put extra liquid in your dish. So I tend to find that using the dried ones give you more flavor, and it doesn't affect the outcome of the dish. Sorry, I didn't realize that was so strong. All right, so now I'm going to add my garlic, mushrooms, and my shrimp.
Yeah, I find myself buying dehydrated mushrooms to use in all kinds of dishes, like with pasta too, because I do like that concentrated flavor, and also the fact that they don't add as much moisture as if you were to use fresh ones.
I wish everyone could be here to smell this, because I know Jen knows what it smells like, but it's amazing.
It smells very good.
Yes. So I'm going to add my rice in now.
I asked my grandma, I said, is there a less labor intensive, quicker way to do this? And she said, no.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned you could make it like a fried rice where you cook the rice and then you add all the ingredients, but this really gives the rice that super luxurious, sticky kind of texture that makes it so special.
It's really interesting because what it ends up doing is, if you've ever, so that first initial soak, what it does is it really starts to cook the rice for you. This next part that we're doing is we're going to start adding chicken stock into it, but not super slow, but not super fast either. The difference is that we're going to put a lid on it. And so you're not going to let it all evaporate. It's going to get absorbed into the rice.
So it's a little bit like a risotto.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I like this recipe because you can cook it to the consistency of the rice that you like. The glutinous rice, some people like a tiny bite to it. Some people like it really soft. And so you can add, the more liquid you add, the smoother, the softer it will be. It will become mush though if you add too much. So you do want to be careful with it. So I'm just going to let it sit, and then we're going to put a lid on it, and I'm going to keep doing that until I tested this recipe out. I like it with about, I would say there was maybe a quarter, an eighth of a can left. And so add up to the consistency. The type of rice you use will also change it, because sweet rice comes in long grain form and short grain form. If you use short grain, it tends to mush up a lot faster. And so you're not going to use as much liquid. If you use the long grain one, it can absorb a little bit more. So it just depends on the kind of rice, but it's a long recipe. It's amazing though. And as we talk and as this goes on, I'll show you. So as Jen answers some more questions, I'm going to continue mixing and adding more of the liquid.
Well, Jen, I mean, our topic tonight is supposedly comfort food. And you chose this recipe as an example of comfort food from your household and training. So can you tell us what that word means to you, and when would this dish be eaten? And what, this word comfort food is kind of developed. What is it?
Well, I think comfort food for me is something nostalgic, something I grew up eating, something that makes me feel safe and reminds me of being with family and friends. And this sweet rice is something that my grandma would make when my family would come over to her house for dinner, especially during the holidays. I don't think we ever had a Thanksgiving or a Christmas dinner where this wasn't at the table. She also started making 2 of them because as we got older, we started eating more and everyone wanted leftovers and stuff. So she's had to make a lot of it. But yeah, it's just a dish that reminds me of being with my family and reminds me of my grandmother. But I think during the pandemic, especially, comfort food just took on a whole life of its own. As you know, when people are distressed, they look for comfort in many things, and a lot of people look for comfort in food. And people started cooking, and they started cooking lots of mac and cheese and lots of lasagna and steak and just food that's kind of like stick to your ribs food that makes you feel good, or food that reminds you of being a kid, or maybe that your parents made for you.
In the piece that you published this weekend on the cauliflower shawarma, you begin with this line that during the pandemic, it seemed that you had forgotten what a vegetable was. And so is there something about comfort food that when we start listing what they are, they don't tend to be leafy greens? I mean, they might be vegetarian, but they're starchier. They're what is it about?
I think, you know what, I know, like what designates a comfort food, and does it have to be not good for you? I think, I think I don't know many kids who grow up being like, oh, I really want broccoli today, which I wish more people did. And I love broccoli now, but I think as a kid, you're just drawn to things that are fun to eat and things that are, carb heavy and fatty and have sugar, like desserts. Like so many people were baking during the pandemic. And so as much fun as eating roasted cauliflower is, and it definitely is, I think you're just drawn to stuff that you don't even have to think about, the stuff that just brings you joy when you think about it and when you see it and when you eat it.
I'm inviting our attendees to list some comfort foods that have been important to them, either historically or last year. So hopefully we'll get an interesting inventory of comfort from our audience tonight. Comfort foods also kind of made a comeback in restaurants during the pandemic, which of course had to switch to carry out. And can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's funny, so many people started doing fried chicken nights, and they found that was just what people wanted to eat. They wanted to eat fried chicken. Italian restaurants that already had pizza and pasta on the menu fared better than some others. There's a restaurant, a French restaurant in Hollywood called Papi Bistro. That was a very excellent French restaurant that just didn't translate well to takeout. And so they actually redid their entire concept, and now they're called For the Win, and they make delicious smash burgers and fried chicken sandwiches. So yeah, a lot of restaurants pivoted, which I feel like poor restaurants, they've had to do so much in the last year and a half. Pivot is the word of 2020. But yeah, they changed their concepts to adapt to how people were eating and what they wanted to eat. And they found that comfort food is definitely what people want to eat.
Great. Well, Rhonda and Howard list theirs as ice cream, mac and cheese, and banana bread.
Which,
I definitely
banana bread.
That. And my friend Peggy Guido says baked potatoes. Mike and June Lee Pillett say Hatch green chili mac and cheese.
Ooh, that's a good one. They should also post the recipe.
I'd love to hear some others from less Americanized backgrounds as well. Like this great dish, which I didn't know about. So continue to share, people, your comfort food favorites. There's a question here also from Laura Rico, who's in the communications here at UCI. So she's also a writer. And she wants to know what pandemic food trends, homemade sourdough, to-go, fine dining, cocktails, do you think are here to stay? And which do you hope stick around?
Let's see. I feel like a lot of kind of trends came up because of circumstance during the pandemic. One of them being a lot more outdoor dining. It's funny because in Southern California, we have the best weather, but there actually weren't a lot of places to eat outside. But now there are so many restaurants that built out patios in their parking lots, or if the city allowed kind of al fresco dining in like directly in front of the restaurant on the sidewalk. And that's just been great to have that much outdoor dining space. And I hope that's something that sticks around. There are certain ones I really hope don't stick around, or there are certain ones that, you know what, I didn't really understand them. Like I was trying to think about all the like viral food recipes that I saw, like the cloud bread, the pancake cereal, which actually looks kind of fun. Or like did you guys see that tortilla wrap hack where everyone had the tortilla and they were cutting it and wrapping it? I don't know why that was so appealing, but it was. I wouldn't be crushed if that didn't stick around, but I guess you can always wrap your tortilla however you want at home. But yeah, but in terms of restaurant dining, you know, takeout is great, but I think there's just something about sitting in a restaurant and getting that whole experience, and being part of, you know, I think restaurants are a big part of communities and the cities here in LA. And so being a part of that is pretty special. So yeah, I hope.
Yeah, and you kind of emphasize, you did a great piece, it was months ago, about pandemic workers, and you interviewed people who work in restaurants and the kind of pathos that they were going through with, you know, trying to hold on to their jobs and going in and out of employment, and their relationship to their customers and the customers' relationship to the place. I thought that was really a different kind of food writing, because it wasn't really about the food, it was really about the people and a kind of anthropology and, you know, historical testifying. I felt like you were testifying to what people have been going through.
Yeah, I think our job as food writers really changed during the pandemic. And as much as we still like to write about the actual food and restaurants, I think what's been great is kind of really focusing on the people behind that food, and just how the pandemic has affected the entire food world, the entire restaurant industry, and the people behind it as well. So it's been nice to cover more than just the food, although covering the food is really fun as well.
We have some more comfort foods here to report on. Very important live update. Chocolate chip banana bread, a nice variation, and also fried chicken sandwiches, which you're an expert in. You're also an
a lot of
expert
them
in fried fish sandwiches. I read your piece on ranking the different fried fish sandwiches. We also have from Samara Rodriguez, I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, Pozzole Rojo.
Zole, nice.
I think I've eaten that and it's wonderful. Is that the soup or is that a different dish?
Yes.
And that's a genuine comfort food that I had the pleasure and privilege of being served once by someone in my office who spent a couple of days, I think, cooking it. And it was really such an extraordinary dish. Do you know much about that dish?
Jessica probably knows more than me about making it. I just really love to eat it because the broth is always so flavorful, and I love the big pieces of hominy in the soup as well. But I'm sure.
Do you know about the process, Jess, of that one?
Yes. And so that's the one that I got in trouble for because I didn't serve it with the right size. And so the process is that you make a broth out of bone. It's the broth that takes so long to make. And it's stewed maybe for 8 to 12 hours. It's usually pork based and it's got the hominy inside of it. And then it has a whole bunch of fresh things that you can add inside of it, including radish, some cilantro, lime. And it's one of those comfort foods like menudo is.
Well, Samara, we'll have to have a pozzole demo
Awesome.
when we're back in person next year and really explore that as a food. I'm really interested. Mariam Hassani, who won one of our chopped cooking contests here. We've been doing these very fun cooking contests.
What? You had a chopped
Yes,
cooking
we do,
contest?
and I will
You're gonna
send
be a
you.
judge next time, Julia.
Oh my
she's gonna be a
God,
We'll
I
judge.
bring
would
you
love
back,
that.
Jen.
Wait, who decided what was in the baskets? I want to know more. Can you please send me a link to watch it later? Okay.
Of course we will. Jess, do you want to say something about our chopped cooking
Yes.
contest?
So for those who have never experienced UCI chopped, I'll just let you get a glimpse of what we did last. The last chop that we had, these were the ingredients, Jen. Canned sardines, enoki mushrooms, eggs, and there was one other one. What was it, Kyle? There was something else. Sardines, eggs, quinoa.
Yeah.
Quinoa.
That's a good
And-
basket.
It is. And we had some pretty impressive things. And so all the people submit their dishes with the name and the process, and then we just look at it and see how it would taste, and we judge virtually. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And next year we're hoping to bring everyone back in and actually doing it in person.
Oh yeah, that would
It's
be
very
super fun.
fun. It's really great. So anyway, Mariam won one of our chopped contests, and she loves oven-baked buffalo wings.
Ooh,
That's
I
her.
like that too.
Ishi loves fried plantain.
Also
So that's a
delicious.
kind of interesting, starchy, very resonant dish. Janet loves dumplings.
Yes,
Homera.
Janet. Yes,
Yes.
Janet. Good job, Janet.
Of course,
Yes.
dumplings is many things, but I think all dumplings are comfort, right? Because they
Yeah.
look like pillows, and they're like they're the resting place for our tongues, and they absorb anxiety. They're like
I like what you did there. Yes, they do. Yes.
Homira likes an Afghan dish called mantu. So you'll
Oh,
have to
very
describe
good.
that. Are you familiar with that, Jen?
Those are a
Mantu.
form of dumplings.
Stuffed beef and onion dumplings.
Hmm.
Okay, Chloe, my student, she likes Chinese yu chow.
The green, the vegetable.
I don't know if it's a vegetable. Can it be a comfort food? It's in the chat. You can see how she spells
Okay,
it.
let me go
It's
to the
Youtiao.
Oh, youtiao. It's the fried
Oh.
crullers.
Oh, the
crullers, yeah.
dumplings. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought it was. Sorry, I can't. I don't know why I can't see. I thought it was Yuchoi. Okay. All right.
But that would
Yes.
be, I would say
Well, that was me. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. Okay.
that green that you were talking about, what you thought it was though, is definitely a comfort food for me too. The
Those are good.
greens, Asian
Mhm.
greens are good.
Jess, do you have something else to demo for us? Then we'll come back to more of these
do.
comfort foods in the chat.
So let me show you what the rice looks like now. So if you want to come back, I did one last push and we're going to season this. So this is pretty much there. And we're going to season it with light soy sauce. So light soy sauce is not less sodium soy sauce. It's just light colored so that it doesn't change the color of the dish too much. And so I'm just going to add a little bit, and then white pepper. If you have, I left my white pepper at home. I'm a big white pepper lover. Any Asian dish you have, you need to have white pepper. Usually Chinese dish, it makes a difference.
I have
And
no
that's
white
it.
pepper in my larder, so I need to
Yeah.
get that.
Oh, you need to get some.
Yep, it's essential. And I like the one with a little bit of salt or MSG too. All right, so there we go. There's the rice ready to go. And I actually refrigerated. It reheats really nicely. It's very, very sticky. It's almost at the point where you can pick it up and eat it with your hand. If you've ever had the lotus leaf at dim sum restaurants where it's like wrapped in lotus leaf, it's very similar to that too. It's a really, really good dish though. So enjoy it. Oh, one last thing about sticky rice. Sticky rice is usually found in Laos. Sticky rice is very, very filling. So it's given to a lot of monks to fill them so they can eat it, and then it fills their stomach and they don't need to eat too much of it. So if you go throughout Thailand parts of Nepal too, you'll see them just eating balls of sticky rice. And it's one of those, it's a great food to keep you full for longer. So don't try to eat all of this is what I'm trying to tell you. It will fill you up. So it goes a long way. This rice, you can grind into a fine powder and you can make mochi out of it. So this is the same stuff that you make mochi out of. So there's sticky rice. Let's talk about some overnight bread. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to make overnight bread because everyone went through a bread craze like we were talking about. I worked with Peter Reinhardt, and Peter Reinhardt is what I consider the bread man. There are definitely a lot more that have come up, but when I met Peter probably 10 years ago, he used to travel with a little box and he wouldn't even check it in. When he would fly, he would have sourdough starters from around the nation, whether it be from San Francisco or New York. And he would have starters. They were his babies. And so wherever he traveled, he'd carry his little babies with him. And they were sourdough starters from around the world or around the nation, probably around the world. But what's important about sourdough that I think people need to realize is sourdough will only taste like San Francisco sourdough if you're around that area or if you have a starter from there. The starters pick up on all the flavors and all the scents in the air. And that's what makes your bread that tastes that way. So sourdough is really interesting. I think a lot of people gave up after a while because it is a process and you do seem to waste some stuff. And it's a game of patience and it's a game of timing. Waking up at the right time to make sure that it's risen and that you need to put it in the fridge or put it in the oven. There's times for it. So I thought I would show you, which was also popular, which is the overnight bread. Because if you don't know how to cook and you don't know how to bake, this is where you start. 3 cups of flour. Again, I'll send, this is Jim Leahy. Mark Bittman's done one. If you're at UCI, I think you have access to New York Times. If not, you can find it. It's easy. 3 cups of bread flour if you want a chewy bread. If you want like a lighter, fluffier bread, you can use all-purpose flour. The gluten in bread flour is what gives it its really nice chew. So we're going to add bread flour. I'm going to dig a hole in the middle. Oh, sorry, never mind. I'm going to add salt first. And then I'm also going to add my yeast. Now let's talk about yeast really quick. There's instant and then there's active. Active needs to be activated. Instant does not. So instant I can straight put into the flour. Active, I need to add into water and then mix it and then do what I want to do with it. So this one though, this regular instant yeast is what I like to use most of the time. So we only need a 1/4 teaspoon because this is going to sit overnight. So I'm going to mix that all up with my hand. I'm not even going to use any tools. And then I'm going to dig a hole right in the middle of the bowl. Okay. And then I've got myself some cold water because again, we're doing this overnight and I'm going to pour it right in the middle. This is the best part about this. You're just going to mix through the middle and let that flour kind of fall down. And you're going to be left with this shaggy mess. And you're like, how does that become bread? But it does. Bread that has a high water content will give you big, big bubbles. And that's what we're trying to do with this bread. So we're not kneading it at all. We're just mixing it until it's a shaggy ball. It might take you 30 seconds or so. You don't need to overwork it, like I said. So just let it sit like that. And you're going to cover it with plastic wrap and put it in your refrigerator for 12 to 18 hours. And that's it. And then you know it's done when you take it out and you see all these little, looks like it's bubbly and messy and it's got all these little holes. Those are all the air pockets. So those are all the air pockets that have started to form. And those are all the bubbles that are in your bread then that make it nice and fluffy. So you can use pretty much anything to coat your board. But we're gonna do this part is probably the most intimidating part for most people. And it's dropping the dough out and forming it, because we do need to deflate it a little bit. So I'm gonna pour my dough out. And what you'll notice is this dough has a lot of air, a lot of bubbles in it. I'm gonna pour it right here. And I'm just going to pat it down with my hand gently and do 4 folds. 1 fold over, another fold here, another fold here, and another fold here. Okay, just like that. Flip it over, seam on the bottom, put it back in the bowl. Another hour, 1 more hour. After that, you're gonna go to your oven and you're gonna put a Dutch oven in your oven. About 30 minutes before you think your bread is ready and is risen and everything. You're gonna
Jess,
yes.
what's a Dutch oven?
I can't show you, because if I show you, then I'm gonna show you my bread. I'll show you in 1 sec. Because
Okay.
I'm gonna put it inside of one. So because I have different, I've already done it. So you're gonna get a Dutch oven is like a cast iron, but the big one, the ones that come up a little bit more. So this bread dough has been sitting now for that extra hour, and it's puffed right back up. Okay. All I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this bread right onto my parchment. Okay. And Marsh is going to watch me. Okay. Because I have to go to my oven where I have preheated my Dutch oven. So hold on.
Mhm.
Run. And so I have a Dutch oven. So this is a Dutch oven. I'm gonna quickly, I can't work fast enough. Okay, there you go. Put it right in there.
Keeping it on the paper.
And then put the lid on. And then put it back in the oven for 30 minutes at 475.
Wow.
And with the magic of TV, no, not really. You have this bread, ta-ta, ready to go.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. And that's going to be
That
really
took
tasty.
no effort. I'm just telling you, it really is that easy. Now the flavor is not as developed as, say, like a sourdough is, but it's a good bread. And I'll show you how it cuts. It's not hot anymore, sorry. I was pretending. So there's the loaf. It's a really pretty loaf, and you just plop it. So it's just a lot of plopping down. And then I'm gonna grab a knife. And you wanna let it sit when it comes out of the oven for about 30 minutes before you cut into it. And there you go. You've got a nice little.
Wow. You could
Yeah.
use that for sandwiches, for breakfast,
Yes.
for anything you want. That's beautiful. Well, we have some more comfort foods here. Rochelle, her comfort food is, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, sinigang, a sour Filipino dish.
Ooh,
Familiar with that, either of you? Sinigang.
Let me see.
the soup. It's a soup, I think.
Is it a soup?
Is it a soup?
I don't know. This is Rochelle will have to tell us. Helena likes also another Philippine dish, lechon cebuano, roasted crispy pork from the Philippines.
Nice.
And then Mike and June say that in New Mexico, they make pozole with the frozen red chili pulp. So there's clearly going to be a lot of regional variation with these comfort dishes. And then Homaira says they also like the crab legs as a comfort dish. Notice there's no leafy green vegetables in this list. So my thesis,
Who's coming here?
thesis is
Who's coming
being
with spinach?
proven.
Ong
No one
choy,
is
ong
saying
choy.
Caesar
Somebody's got to say
salad.
ong choy.
is a comfort dish. It's something else. It's a treat, but it's not a comfort dish. Chloe Lowe, one of our students, has a question for you, bringing it back to writing, Jen. What is the experience like being a food writer? Are there questions or guidelines that you keep in mind for dishes when you're writing about them?
I think it really depends on the dish and who the chef is. But I always want to know, I guess, what inspired the dish, or why is this particular person making this? Where did the recipe come from? And especially if we're doing like a writing about a recipe or like a cooking story, being sure to tell people where the ingredients come from, and where you could potentially find them to make them at home. But I guess it would really depend on the dish. But I always want to know like where the recipe came from and what inspired that person to make it.
And are there tricks for trying to describe how things taste? Words are so different from food, and how do you communicate? Do you have any tips for us who would like to be able to write more vividly about food?
I think you just need to read a lot of food writing. And also don't go for the obvious choice of words, I guess, like tasty, and my old editor used to say that tasty and delicious are throwaway words, and she never wanted to hear them or see them, which I completely understood. And just kind of thinking about different terminology for different things, like maybe you want to use a word that architects typically use for something, or maybe you want to use a musical term. Just kind of, you can draw from different areas to help you describe what you're experiencing.
And that's probably what makes your writing stand out too, when you come up with that unusual word from a different discourse that really seems to communicate something fresh about a dish. That's really fascinating. We do have stir-fried okra, which I think does count as a vegetable.
And is delicious.
And Homira says that Southwestern chicken salad is a comfort food, and I believe that does have green vegetables in it, leafy greens. So that is interesting. Rhonda and Howard suggest matzo brie, which is a Passover delicacy.
Nice.
Matzo soaked in egg and made into a kind of a sweet breakfast dish. Getting me hungry. And then Rochelle does confirm. Thank you, Rochelle. We didn't have to go to Google. Rochelle was here for us. That sinigang is a soup. There are different kinds, like pork and fish sinigang. So that is really interesting. So we're going to have a sinigang and pot soleil demo next year, so that we can further explore these important comfort foods. You're going to demo a pasta dish still for us, is that right, Jess?
Yes. I just thought that this was important. In the food world, there's a lot, and Jen, you can probably say a lot about this. There's millions of recipes out there, and people take them and they label them as their own. And I feel like this is one of those recipes that nobody really knows where it came from. I did some digging and I think I found the original one, but I'm not sure. So you might have to back me up or say I'm wrong, but I found the feta tomato dish that everybody was raving about on TikTok, I don't even know, but it was a feta with tomatoes on the outside. I was digging around and I found a Finnish lady who swears that she is the original one. And so her recipe is super easy. And I don't know why some people have success with this and other people don't. The only thing that I can think of is the type of feta that they're buying. So I'm just going to show you how to make this because it is incredibly easy and actually tastes really good if you have good quality products. And so this is where the quality of what you're using really makes or breaks the dish. So a lot of olive oil, half a cup, but we're only going to put a quarter of it in there first. So we're going to coat the bottom of a pan with a quarter cup of olive oil. Then I've got a piece of feta, about 7 ounces, and it's a square. It's not broken up and crumbled or anything. Then I'm going to lay straight into the middle of that. And then I've got cherry tomatoes. I'm not going to half them. I'm just keep them whole, just like that. And I'm going to drizzle a little bit of the olive oil on top of that and toss it around. Okay. And I'm going to lay it all around the outside. Now she doesn't. Uh-huh.
Oh, sorry. I feel like so many people came up with I mean, there are millions of recipes on TikTok and on the internet. But why do you think this one specifically went so viral?
Because of how easy it was and how pretty it is. I really think that this was a pretty dish. I feel like eyes really, it drew people's attention. It was also less than 5 ingredients, like 5 or 6 ingredients. So it was simple enough. And they were ingredients you could find in any country in the world. And so almost. And so I feel like those are the things that made, I'll be honest, I didn't know about this until 2 months ago. So I just found out about this. And so, but once I made it, I was like, oh, okay, I see it now. Because this is what she doesn't actually add garlic. And so what I thought was, hey, just take whole cloves of garlic and put them around so that it roasts together. And then we're going to add some basil. So this is the other part that you need to remember. Take your feta and flip it around. So make sure you coat it with the oil. You put it in the oven at 400 for about 10 minutes and then crank up the oven to about 450 or broil almost for another 10 minutes. And that will blister the cherry tomatoes, and then cook your pasta. So I have it here. Where do I have it? Oh, I did have it. And so I let my cherry tomatoes get a little brown, but that's what it looks like. So it's this big piece of feta now right in the middle. I've got some pasta that I've cooked up already, and I tossed with a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to add half of that in. Oops. Yikes, yikes, yikes. And then I'm going to start mixing everything up together. Now, the most important part when you're making pasta is keeping the pasta water. So I have my pasta water boiling and going on the side, and I'm going to add a little bit in here, and that'll create a nice sauce for you with the cherry tomatoes then. So everything just gets mixed up. Break up the feta a little bit more.
And what's the texture of that feta like after it's been baked? Does it get kind of soft? Is that?
It's more like, it's almost like cottage cheese. It's a little bit, yeah. So it doesn't get super, super duper creamy. I'm sure if you got like a full, what is this one? No, it is a full fat. But different fetas might have different effects. I know it doesn't work with the ones that's already broken up. But then I'm going to take some fresh basil and just take some fresh basil leaves. And you could even use like the Persian basil for this. The lemon basil would be really good in this too. I wouldn't use Thai basil, but you can use the American or Persian basil would be good. I'm going to stack all my leaves up together.
I've also seen so many different variations of this recipe too. People using goat cheese, people using different types of tomatoes. I think I watched TikTok, so I think I saw hundreds of people making this, and it did look very good.
But you haven't tried it, or you have?
No, you know what? I haven't tried it.
You're
I
like
have a
me.
whole list of, I have a whole list of things I've seen on TikTok. Mostly they're like weird snacks and like snack combinations. Like, Jessica, have you seen the like the hollowed out jalapeno with the cream cheese and the everything bagel seasoning and the Takis inside of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Like
looks,
stuff
my
like
daughter
that.
would love that, I think.
Like one day I'm gonna, like, I have a full list. I like save these videos. I was like, one day I'm just gonna like go through and like make all these weird things. But the actual recipes like this, I just kind of looked at them as like, oh, that looks good, but then didn't feel the need to actually try it. So maybe I definitely have to try it.
And I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think that people were looking for something to do. And if you had never cooked before, this didn't seem too intimidating. And that was probably why so many people were drawn to it, because it made sense. It's not something they could mess up. And it's good cold. So that's the other thing. It actually is almost better cold than hot, because it's almost like a pasta salad then.
Wow.
And so I was going to serve this with the bread. So those were the three dishes that we wanted. Yeah.
Now, Christine, my colleague Christine Connell, says that steamed broccoli and raspberries picked from her garden are actually comfort foods for her. So we're getting a few veggies and fruits into our comfort food pantheon.
Nice.
So, Jen, you've mentioned TikTok, and you've also mentioned the importance of reading food writing. Where do you get more of your inspiration and food ideas from? Internet and video like TikTok or YouTube, or from books and magazines and print?
Do you mean for like story ideas?
I guess for story ideas, inspiration, I don't know. I mean, it's such a complex media landscape now. And I'm sure you have to be, as a writing for the LA Times, you've got to be tuned to all of this.
I have
But
many apps on my
what's
phone.
your media menu, and how do you what's a balanced media diet for a food writer?
Oh, I don't know. Balanced media diet. Well, I do like to watch a lot of food TikTok because it's fun, but we're also launching a food TikTok for LA Times Food, which is going to be a mix of cooking and restaurant coverage. So that'll be good. But yes, I guess sometimes for recipe inspiration, I will scroll through TikTok. But if I'm looking for, I guess, like restaurant news, I follow a lot of chefs on Instagram, and that's how I find out about a lot of restaurant openings or things that they're working on. That was actually the inspiration for the recent chili sauce story that I did. I found that many restaurants were putting out their versions of lao gan ma or chili crisp, and that's what inspired me to kind of seek out the different people who were making it, and that's how I learned that so many, no less than 15 restaurants in LA had started making it like in the last year and a half. So I had a story idea from that. But yeah, I just like to read a lot of food publications, a lot of magazines. But I definitely spend a good amount of time, doing research and scrolling on Instagram and TikTok too. I think you just need a little bit of everything, just to make sure you're aware of kind of the food media landscape happening wherever you are.
And who will be creating those TikToks?
Oh, I will. No, I will be doing some of them, and then my colleagues will hopefully be doing some of them as well. So hopefully be a team effort for the food team.
Wow, we're definitely going to have to be looking for those. That's very exciting. We have time for a couple more questions. If you want to type your questions into your Q&A, and I have at least one more question for Jen. You can have questions for Jess as well. So for food writing, like the classics, what would be like your canon of food writers that anyone who's interested in this field, either as a writer themselves or just as a kind of literate kitchen person who wants to have that deeper vocabulary and framework for understanding what they're eating? Do you have like 3 favorite writers or 5?
Yeah. I can 3. MFK Fisher should be required
How
reading.
to Cook a Wolf.
There you go. Yeah. Yes. Gastronomical Me. Any of her work should be required reading. They have them at the library. I frequently check them out. And I think Jonathan Gold, the late Jonathan Gold, I was lucky enough to work with him for some years. He was wonderful, and I think really changed restaurant criticism, not just here in LA, but in the world. He was fantastic. And I read a lot of Lagaya Michon at the New York Times. She's one of their critics there. She's absolutely wonderful. So I guess if I had to pick 3, those would be the 3.
Well, that's a great list. That's really terrific. Jess, do you have any final words for us? You're muted.
Oh, sorry, Kyle. Kyle does that. That's not me. No. No, just I want to thank everyone for joining us. I think this is an important topic just because I'm lucky. I'm in the food industry, but I get to do what I love. I get to teach people about food, and I get to talk about food, just like Jen gets to write about food and go to restaurants. there's a whole group of people that work with food that are trying to find work again and trying to get back into what they were doing. I think it's really important for us to continue to support mom and pop restaurants. They're still struggling. They're having a hard time finding employees now, of all things. And so the fight's not over with restaurants struggling. And I think it's just an important time to realize that these are people trying to make a living, and opening a restaurant has got to be one of the hardest things to do to try to make a living out of. So important, but really enjoyed it. Thank you, Jen, for everything. And we will share the recipes for sure.
Great. And we have one more question from the floor. This is from Mike and June. They want to know what the new LA Times food demo kitchen facility is like.
Oh, it's still under construction at our new office campus in El Segundo, but it's going to be big. We're going to have multiple cooking stations. I think it's studio ready, so we have all the lighting ready to go to do some cooking demos with Ben Mims, our wonderful cooking columnist. It's gonna be really nice, but it's not finished quite yet, but it should be finished soon.
And that's where some of those TikToks will be made, or are they going to be made on the street, like with the chicken sandwich? And
they're going to be made everywhere. Yeah, some will be in the kitchen, some might be in my home kitchen, some will be at restaurants, some will be out on the street. But yeah, we will bring you TikToks from everywhere.
wow. Well, this has been so enlightening. Thank you so much. We've really enjoyed having you here, and congratulations on this great career. We're really pleased that you, as an anteater, are now at the LA Times doing this important work, right? I'm so bad at it, but zot. They're hungry. And we hope to bring you back and meet some of our students and work with them a little bit on food writing and all of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.